She forgot to log out of her second Instagram account. That's it. That's the first domino. Not an affair caught red-handed. Not lipstick on a collar. Not even a text message. Just a soft ping on her iPad while she was folding laundry. A screen light. A message preview. Last night was everything. I didn't even mean to see it. She was 5 feet away, humming, smiling, telling me she might make soup. I was scrolling through my emails on the couch, and her iPad lit up beside me like it was whispering just to me. I tapped it without thinking. I thought it was her usual account, the one filled with food pics, boring quotes, and our vacation reels. But this wasn't that. This one had 83 followers. It was private. The profile picture was a close-up of her lips. Username at Sundays. In. Secret. I didn't even know she liked Sundays. She always said they made her anxious. I opened the DMs. I wish I hadn't. There were dozens. Maybe more. Photos. Voice notes. Videos I couldn't bring myself to watch. And one thread pinned to the top. A man named E. I read the messages backward. Last night was everything. The wine. The hotel room. The way he touched her hair. I don't remember breathing while I read. I don't even remember blinking. Then came the line that stuck in my ribs like glass. I told him I needed space. He bought it. You're a better man than he'll ever be. I closed the app. Sat perfectly still. She was in the next room laughing at something on TV. Maybe a sitcom. Maybe a TikTok. Her laugh sounded the same as always. But suddenly, it felt like I was hearing it for the first time, and it didn't sound real. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I went into the kitchen, opened a bottle of wine we were saving for our anniversary, poured 2 glasses. She gave me that familiar smile. The one I used to believe in. What's the occasion? She asked. Just felt like a good night for wine. She clinked her glass with mine. Took a sip. Said something about the flavor being too dry. I didn't hear a word. My ears were ringing with rage. That night, I lay awake listening to her breathe. I turned my back so she wouldn't feel how tense I was. I watched the numbers change on the clock until the sun came up. And at 6:23 a.m., I got out of bed, drove to a hardware store, and bought a small, hidden camera. Not because I needed more proof. Because I wanted to see what she was capable of when she thought no one was watching. The box said motion activated, but that wasn't what I needed. I needed time. Silence. Evidence. I needed to know if the woman in my bed was real, or just a carefully rehearsed performance I'd been applauding for years. I installed the camera myself, behind the bookshelf in the guest room, facing the hallway. Small, unnoticeable, the kind of thing you forget exists after 10 minutes. I angled it so it would catch anyone entering or leaving our bedroom. That was all I wanted. Not drama, not a showdown. Just a silent witness. The first night, nothing happened. The second, same thing. But on the third night, a Thursday, she said something that made the hairs on my neck stand up. We were eating dinner, barely speaking, just background noise and the clink of silverware. Out of nowhere, she looked up and said, "Do you think people can love 2 people at once?" I didn't flinch. I didn't let my fork pause midair. I just said, "I don't know. Can they?" She smirked, almost like she knew something I didn't. I think love's more flexible than people like to admit. Then she changed the subject to weekend plans. That night, she went to bed early. Said she was exhausted from work. I waited 10 minutes, then 15. The house was quiet. I sat in the dark living room, pretending to scroll my phone, but really I was just listening. I heard nothing. No whispers. No footsteps. Still, I checked the footage the next morning before she woke up. At first, everything was still. Then, just before midnight, the hallway light flicked on. She appeared from the bedroom, wearing jeans and a dark hoodie. She didn't look tired. She looked alive, energized. Her phone was in her hand. She walked quickly toward the front door and disappeared from the frame. I checked the time code. 12:04 a.m. She returned at 3:42 a.m. Her hair was slightly wet. She was barefoot now, hoodie gone. She had a small paper bag in her hand and a smile on her face, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. She looked like someone coming back from something they didn't regret. She passed by the camera again and paused for just a second. I swear to God, it was like she looked directly into the lens. I froze the frame, zoomed in. Her eyes weren't looking at the camera, not exactly, but something about the way her head tilted, the way she adjusted her posture, made me wonder, did she know? The thought sent a chill down my back. But worse than that was the realization. She was lying effortlessly, with the calm of someone who's done it before and would do it again. I didn't say anything that morning. I handed her coffee, told her she looked tired, and she shrugged it off. Couldn't sleep, she said. Had weird dreams. I almost laughed. Instead, I smiled. Hope they weren't about me. No, she said, sipping her coffee. Not this time. I've never hated a sentence more in my life. That day, I did something I never thought I would. I called in sick to work, waited for her to leave, and started tearing the house apart. Drawer by drawer. Closet by closet. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Love letters? Receipts? Hotel keys? But I knew something had to be here. And then I found it. Not in some hidden place. Not under a floorboard or inside a shoebox. But in plain sight, in her art desk drawer, beneath a half-finished watercolor of our dog. A burner phone. Still on. Still warm. With one single message thread. I opened it. Scrolled up. And there it was. A photo of the two of them. Smiling. At a lake. She was sitting in his lap. Wearing my hoodie. Underneath, a message from her, dated just 5 days ago. I wish I met you first. I didn't think it through. I was sitting on the floor of our living room, holding a burner phone that felt radioactive in my hand. Her laughter echoed faintly down the hall. She was on a work call, or pretending to be. I couldn't hear the words. I only remember the rhythm. She always laughed in threes when it was real. This one had 4. I counted. I stared at the message thread between her and this guy. This stranger who apparently wore my hoodie and held her like I hadn't been allowed to in months. His name was saved as just A, followed by a heart emoji. No other details. Just that. I scrolled past more photos. Not explicit ones, just intimate. A shared milkshake. A book with her handwriting in the margins. A blurry photo of her sleeping. Her head on his chest, his fingers running through her hair. She looked safe. Not just happy. Safe. And it destroyed me. I was shaking. Part rage, part heartbreak, part something else I couldn't name yet. And then, before my brain could stop me, my thumb started typing. We need to talk. I hit send. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then another. I started to panic. What if he didn't answer? What if she had warned him about me? What if I had just set something in motion I couldn't reverse? Then, the dots appeared. He was typing. Hey, is everything okay? He didn't know. He didn't know it was me. I leaned into it. No, I don't think I can do this anymore. He's starting to notice things. Pause. 3 minutes. Then, you said you had it under control. So now I knew. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't one wild weekend at a cabin or a drunk mistake she regretted. This was coordinated. It had phases. A plan. A timeline. My hands went cold. I typed again. I think I need a few days. Space. Let it cool down. He replied instantly. Of course. Just don't disappear on me again like last time. Last time? There had been a last time? I felt the floor tilt under me. My stomach turned over, but I didn't stop. I needed more. Needed to know who I was living with. What kind of story I was actually inside. What if he finds the lake photo? He replied. Then we deny everything. Just like before. Before. That word stuck to my brain like glue. I wanted to throw the phone, scream, demand answers, grab her, and shake the truth out of her like a loose tooth. Instead, I calmly got up, placed the phone back in her drawer exactly where I found it, closed it without a sound, and went into the kitchen. She walked in 2 minutes later. Told me she was thinking about getting takeout tonight. Asked if I wanted Thai or sushi. I said, you pick. She smiled and said, you sure you're okay? You've been quiet today. I just looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I realized something I hadn't let myself accept until now. This wasn't my wife anymore. This was someone wearing her voice, her face, her habits, like a mask. And I had no idea who was underneath. The photo wouldn't leave my head. Her, smiling in the sun, the lake behind her glowing like glass. Her legs curled into his lap. That same hoodie I'd been looking for last fall. The one she claimed she'd lost on a hiking trip with her sister. I reverse image searched the photo, hoping for metadata, geolocation, anything. Nothing. She'd been careful. But A hadn't been. On a whim, I searched some of the texts he'd sent. Little phrases, things like, hope it's peaceful like last time, and same cove. It was that last one that finally cracked it open. A local hiking forum, buried in an old thread about quiet spots near the woods, mentioned a place called Foxwell Cove, about an hour and a half from us. No official trail. Just a bend in the lake behind some rusted-out fencing and a gravel path that hadn't been maintained in years. I told her I was going to my brother's to help fix his car. She barely looked up from her phone, just nodded and told me to drive safe. 2 hours later, I was standing at the edge of the same lake from the photo. Same tree line, same rock formations. Everything was identical, except it was empty. No sign of her. No hoodie. No laughter echoing across the water. Just me, my breath in the cold morning air, and the sick feeling in my stomach that I didn't belong here. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I started walking along the edge, looking for anything, litter, footprints, whatever. That's when I noticed the faint remains of a small fire pit, covered in leaves. Charred wood. Melted wax. A cigarette, but lipstick-stained. She didn't smoke. But someone did. Just behind the pit was a mossy log, half-rotted and cracked open down the middle. I don't know what made me reach inside. Some voice in my head, maybe. A whisper that didn't belong to me. I felt around and hit plastic. A bag, wrapped in duct tape. Thick. Not buried, just hidden. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Inside were 3 things. A disposable camera. Old school, like the kind we used in high school. A hotel key card with no logo, just a barcode and the number 217. A small black leather journal. Hers. My heart was hammering now. This wasn't just an affair. This was a second life. I opened the journal. Page 1. A doodle of waves and hearts. Page 2. A note. No date. No greeting. Just a confession. Sometimes I imagine what it'd be like if he just disappeared. Not in a scary way. Just quietly. No trace. Just freedom. I stopped reading. I was sweating through my coat now, even in the cold. The idea that she'd not only thought these things, but written them down, preserved them, stored them, like trophies, made me dizzy. This wasn't just cheating. This was something darker. I stuffed the bag back into my backpack, covered the log again, and got out of there. When I got home, she was in the kitchen, laughing on the phone again. Her back to me. Her voice soft and musical, like it used to be when we were dating. She didn't hear me come in. No, he suspects nothing, she said casually. He's always been too trusting. I turned and walked back out of the house. I couldn't breathe. This woman had been sleeping next to me, sharing meals, smiling across the dinner table like nothing had changed. But something had, something deep and irreversible. And now, I had proof. Not just of the affair, but maybe of something far worse. I had to drive 2 towns over to get it developed. Nobody in my city handles disposable cameras anymore. The guy at the counter was maybe 19, bored, chewing a pencil, and gave me that raised eyebrow look when I handed him the plastic relic. I gave him a fake smile and told him it was from a friend's bachelor party, some old photos we were finally developing as a joke. He didn't care, said it'd be ready in 2 days. I didn't sleep either of those nights. She kept asking what was wrong, called me distant, cold, like I'd suddenly become the villain in some invisible movie she'd been directing. I nodded, apologized, told her I was tired. Work stress, family stuff, you name it. She offered a back rub one night. I declined. She frowned and turned off the light without a word. I lay there in the dark and listened to her breathing. And for a terrifying second, I wondered if she could hear my heart pounding and knew exactly what I'd found. On the morning of the second day, I got the call. The photos were ready. I drove back to that little shop like I was headed to an execution. Not mine, hers. Maybe both. The envelope was thicker than I expected. 24 prints. Glossy. Still warm from the machine. I didn't even make it back to the car. I opened them in the parking lot, sitting on the curb, hands trembling. The first few photos were familiar. The lake. Her, smiling, alone in some. Her and the man, in others. Them cooking over a fire. Her in the hoodie, him shirtless, her hand grazing his chest like she'd done it 100 times. I felt sick. But then things changed. Around photo 10, the tone shifted. There was a picture of a road I didn't recognize. Foggy. Empty. No signs. No cars. Then another of a cabin, not the one from the original photos. This one looked abandoned. Boarded windows. Moss growing on the walls. No lights. Just shadow. Then a shot of her, alone this time, inside that cabin, sitting on a bare mattress. No expression. Hair wet. Clothes different. A bag in her lap. I flipped to the next photo. Same cabin, different room. A photo of me, taken through a window. My back was turned. I was in the garage, working on my bike. I remember that day. It was weeks ago. It was raining. She'd told me she was visiting her mother. Another shot of me, this time asleep on the couch, TV glowing in the background. She'd said she was working late that night. And then the last 5 photos. One was of her journal. Open to the page I read, the one where she imagined me disappearing. Another was of the burner phone, lit up with my name on the screen. The next showed a shovel, leaning against the wall of the cabin. The fourth, I wish I hadn't seen it. It was a blurred photo of what looked like a large plastic tarp rolled up in the woods, red smudges across one side. No faces. No proof. But something primal in my gut twisted at the sight. The final photo was the worst. It was a selfie. Her face, smeared with dirt. Smiling. Eyes wide, almost ecstatic. And written across her hand in black marker were the words, "Don't trust your memory." That's when I realized something I hadn't let myself think before. This wasn't just betrayal. This was manipulation. Layered. Planned. Psychological. She hadn't just hidden a second life. She was rewriting mine. And somewhere deep inside me, a voice I'd been ignoring whispered something cold and impossible. What if she doesn't just want to leave you? What if she wants to erase you? I don't know what I expected him to look like. Maybe taller. Maybe cocky. Someone with movie star confidence, a leather jacket, a jawline that screamed betrayal. But when I finally saw, he didn't look like a villain. He looked like a substitute history teacher. Slouched shoulders, thin glasses, nervous hands that twitched when he wasn't speaking. He didn't recognize me at first. That made sense. I'd messaged him from the burner phone earlier that morning, keeping it cryptic. I can't meet at the cabin anymore. I need to see you. In public. We picked a coffee shop in a nearby town. I got there first. Sat by the window. Chose a seat where I could see the door and keep my back to the wall, just in case. When he walked in, he scanned the room, eyes bouncing over me like I didn't register. I stood up slowly. "Hey," I said, watching his face. "You're A, right?" He squinted, confused, then his eyes widened like he'd seen a ghost. "Wait, are you?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm him." He stepped back. His chair scraped the floor. His hand went to his pocket like he was about to reach for something. Maybe a phone. Maybe pepper spray. I didn't know. "You're supposed to be," he started. "What?" I interrupted. "Say it." He didn't answer. He just sat down. The silence between us was loud enough to snap bones. "You thought I was dead, didn't you?" I asked, keeping my voice low. He blinked, looked around like someone was filming us. "Look, man," he said finally. "I didn't know. I swear. I didn't know she was married when we met. She told me you. She said you'd left her. That you'd gone off-grid. That you were unstable." I didn't react. "She said I helped her through it," he added. "That you were dangerous. That she'd escaped." I laughed. Just once. Not because it was funny, because it was insane. "Did she ever say my name?" I asked. "No," he admitted. "Just initials. Just E." Said she couldn't say too much. That you had people who still checked in on her. Now I was the monster in some psychological thriller. "Did she ever mention a lake? Or a tarp?" His face went pale. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She made me help her carry something once. She said it was her art supplies. It was wrapped up weird. Heavy. I asked if she needed help unloading, and she said no. Told me to wait in the car." "What color was the tarp?" I asked. He hesitated. "Blue," he whispered. "With red on it." I thought it was paint. Paint. That's what I used to think too. Every red flag, every strange moment, every deflection, I painted over them. Made excuses. Blamed stress. Blamed myself. And now here I was, sitting across from the man who wore my hoodie while I lay awake, wondering why my wife had stopped touching me. He looked broken. Not guilty used. "Why didn't you ever ask more questions?" I asked. He shook his head. "Because I wanted to believe her. She looked scared sometimes. She'd stare off like she was somewhere else. And then there were moments she'd just flip. Like a switch." "Did she ever talk about disappearing?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah." Said she wished she could leave it all behind. Wished no one would come looking for her. "Did she ever mention what would happen if I came back?" He froze. And then he said something I'll never forget. "She told me if he ever came back, someone would have to finish what she started." I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out before he could say anything else. The air outside felt colder now. Sharper. The lines between memory and imagination were starting to blur. She'd rewritten the narrative with this man. Made herself the survivor. Made me the threat. And now that I'd stepped out of her story and back into reality, there was only one question left. What exactly had she started, and how far was she willing to go to finish it? It started with the smell. Faint, chemical, almost sweet. Not perfume. Something sharper. She walked past me on Tuesday morning, brushing my shoulder, and the scent clung to her clothes like smoke. She'd never worn anything like it before. Not in all our years together. I didn't say anything. I just watched her move through the kitchen, pretending everything was fine, like I hadn't just stared into the abyss of a disposable camera 3 nights ago and found proof that the woman I married was capable of lying through her teeth while slicing a mango. She hummed that morning. Loudly. It sounded off-key. Forced. Her voice cracked a little toward the end, like it was trying too hard to sound carefree. That's when I realized something chilling. She wasn't humming to relax herself. She was doing it for me. To sell the illusion. She knew. Somehow, she'd figured it out. Maybe she found the missing journal. Maybe she noticed the burner phone wasn't exactly where she left it. Maybe she finally looked behind the bookshelf and saw the small black lens staring back at her. I don't know. But something had changed. We were no longer husband and wife. We were two spies occupying the same battlefield. Every drawer was a vault. Every glance, a negotiation. Every silence, loaded. That night, she cooked my favorite dinner, chicken piccata. She set the table with candles, dimmed the lights, played our wedding song on her phone. I nearly laughed. The moment felt like a eulogy disguised as a date. We sat across from each other, cutting meat we didn't want to eat, exchanging fake smiles. She asked me about work. I gave her answers that weren't true, but close enough to pass. She complimented my haircut. I hadn't gotten one in 3 weeks. We were dancing in a house made of landmines, careful not to step too hard. Then she said it. Do you still love me? I looked up, fork halfway to my mouth. The question didn't sound sincere. It sounded like bait, and I was done biting. Why do you ask? I said. She shrugged, tilting her head like a curious child. You've been distant lately. I don't know. Just feels like maybe you're not here anymore. The irony nearly broke me. I've just been tired, I said. She nodded, then leaned forward slightly. You know, if there's anything you want to talk about, you can. I smiled. Too wide. Thanks. The air between us was thick. Oily. I swear I could hear the blood pumping in my ears. Later that night, while she was in the shower, I checked the camera. It had been moved. Subtly, barely. A shift of maybe 2 inches to the left. Not enough to trigger an alarm in someone else. But I'd installed it. I knew its angle, its field of view. She'd touched it, which meant she knew. And the worst part? She wanted me to know that she knew. This was psychological warfare now. She started doing small things. Leaving knives out on the counter. Turning off the hallway lights so I'd walk through pitch black to get to the bathroom. One morning, I found her standing in the garage staring at the wall. Not doing anything. Just standing. When I asked what she was doing, she smiled and said, listening. To what? She never answered. I stopped sleeping. I kept my shoes by the bed. My phone in my pocket. A crowbar in the laundry room. I locked the bedroom door at night and claimed it was because I'd been dreaming weird lately. She nodded and handed me a melatonin gummy like I was her child. I didn't take it. That Friday, I came home to find all the framed photos in the hallway turned face down. No explanation. No apology. When I asked, she simply said, felt like changing the energy. Something was coming. I could feel it. Not an argument. Not a divorce. Something else. A conclusion. A closing act. A final move on a chessboard that I didn't even realize we'd been playing since the beginning. And that night, at exactly 3:12 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the front door unlocking. She wasn't in bed. And she wasn't alone. The front door opened slow. I was already standing at the top of the stairs, holding the crowbar. Bare feet. Heart in my throat. My hand was shaking, but I wasn't scared. I was beyond fear, into that strange, cold calm that happens when your brain accepts that things may never be the same again. The hallway light was off. Just the dull blue glow of the kitchen nightlight painted the scene in shadows. Then I saw her silhouette. Alone. Hair damp. Jacket zipped halfway. Her hand still on the doorknob, like she had frozen in time. She looked up, saw me standing there. And then she said, I hoped you'd be asleep. I didn't answer. My grip on the crowbar tightened. I didn't know what she'd do. What I'd do. She stepped inside, shut the door behind her, then leaned against it like she was holding herself up. I know you know, she said quietly. You've known for a while now. I nodded. The house was so still I could hear the fridge humming like thunder. Then why haven't you left? She asked. My voice cracked when I finally spoke. Because I was waiting for you to tell me the truth. She gave a bitter smile. Which truth? That I lied? That I fell in love with someone else? That I lost myself and dragged you down with me? All of it, I said. She walked past me without looking. Went into the living room. I followed, not too close. She sat on the couch, pulled her legs under her, like we were just two people having a normal, late-night conversation. For a second, it almost felt safe. And then she said the thing I never expected. He's gone. I ended it. 2 weeks ago. That stopped me cold. Why? She looked up at me. Really looked, and there were tears in her eyes, but not the kind that ask for pity. The kind that come from somewhere so deep, you don't even know you were carrying that weight. Because he wasn't real, she said. He was just an escape. A story I told myself, so I didn't have to admit I was the problem. She laughed once, hollow. I didn't cheat because of you. I cheated because of me. Because I couldn't stand stillness. Because I thought chaos meant I was alive. I kept secrets to feel powerful. And when you started pulling away, it scared me. I stayed quiet. And then I found the camera, she said. And the burner phone was in the wrong place. And I realized. You were watching. You knew. And still, you didn't hurt me. You didn't scream. You didn't throw me out. She covered her face. I expected war. You gave me mercy. That broke something in me. I sat down across from her. For the first time in months, maybe longer, I saw her as a person again. Not a monster. Not a mystery. Just broken. And ashamed. And scared. We talked until sunrise. Really talked. No defenses. No chessboard. No strategies. She told me everything. From the beginning. How long it went on. How lost she felt. How the man wasn't dangerous. Just naive. And easily manipulated by the version of the story she sold him. She admitted to planting small things to make me question myself. Not out of hatred, but because she wanted to keep control of the lie. It was sick. Twisted. Honest. And somehow healing. I don't know why I didn't walk away that morning. Maybe because I saw something in her that mirrored what I hated most in myself. All the times I chose silence over speaking, retreat over conflict, avoidance over truth. But I told her the conditions. Therapy. Honesty. No more lies. If I was going to stay, we had to rebuild from rubble. No shortcuts. No pretending. She agreed. It's been 11 months now. We go to therapy every Tuesday. Sometimes we still sleep in separate rooms. We're not perfect. We're not pretending to be. But we talk. And some nights, we sit on the couch, share a bottle of wine, and just be quiet together. No masks. No performances. The hoodie's gone. The journal, burned. The camera, dismantled. And one morning, while folding laundry, she said something I'll never forget. You gave me space. I thought I wanted that. But what I really needed was to be seen. Maybe that's all any of us want in the end. Not space. Not escape. Just someone who sees the worst parts of us and chooses to stay anyway.